Yeah, gotta aim for the top like, hold up. Yeah, I can never doubt myself, I know better. All of you critics be acting like you know better. Blowing the smoke, but I know when the dust settles that I'm in my element. It's evident that there's levels to the game.
What's happening, people? Welcome back to the Athletes to Athletes podcast. Today, we continue our Women's History Month conversations with former wrestler Marlee Smith. We discuss growing up and having to compete against boys, being part of the first girls wrestling team at Wyoming Seminary Prep School, and how she now runs her own social media management business. So I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Marlee. And as always, we appreciate you listening and watching the A2A podcast. So as I said, welcome back to the Athletes to Athletes podcast. And Marlee, I'm really excited to get into your story and talk to you about your athletic career and everything that you're doing now as an adult and post-athletic career. But I always like to start off with, why did you want to be an athlete? What was it about sports that kind of pulled you into that community, even as a young girl, as we'll obviously get into? But why? What was it about sports that just kind of drew you into that?
Yeah, I think as a child, as a young girl, I was just always so energetic, always wanted to be doing something. My whole family was into sports. My parents coached, and so my brother and sister played sports. So I was surrounded kind of with sports, and like I said, I was always energetic, wanted to be doing something. Um, I had ADHD, so I was a little troublemaker in school, not like in a bad way, but just I couldn't sit still.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I was actually, when I was younger, I don't even know what age, I was cheerleading with my sister, and my dad coached football, and then he needed some players, so he kind of pulled me off the sideline from cheering and threw football pads on me. And ever since that day, it's just I loved football. If we could have like women's football in college, I think that's what I would have done. I just loved football so much. It was probably my favorite sport, um, along with wrestling. And like growing up, I played baseball, softball, field hockey, and I cheered, did gymnastics, soccer. Soccer was my other main sport. And then kind of went into high school saying like, okay, I got to choose what sport I'm going to really focus on the rest of my career. So in high school, I did soccer and wrestling.
Yeah.
Um, and then my senior year of high school, that's when uh, the first year of Wyoming Seminary's women's program came out. And I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity for women's wrestling. I think I should go there if I want to pursue wrestling. Um, and I did. It was great, but it was the first year, so there was a good amount of girls, but
Hmm.
not a ton. We had great coaches. Erin Vandiver, Adeline Gray was the assistant coach. So we had great coaches to look up to. But the school itself, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like you were in a prison in a way, like you couldn't really do anything. Um, but academically, Wyoming Seminary prepared me for college for sure.
Yeah.
Um, if I went to my public school in New Jersey and then went off to college, I don't think I would have been as ready. Because at Wyoming Seminary, it's like you're getting the work. Like we had study hours, like for an hour and a half a night where your door has to be open. You got to be doing your homework. So that helped a lot. Whereas like in public school, I would never have to do any homework. So academically, Wyoming Seminary prepared me for a lot of things actually. But yeah, then I went off to Arizona State and um, I had women's coaches always coming up to me. Um, but I was in a position where there weren't any D1 women's wrestling schools yet.
Mhm.
So I kind of had to decide, do I want to go to a school in the middle of nowhere and get some good wrestling, or go somewhere I really enjoy that has an RTC, and a place that actually feels like home. And so I came to Arizona State the first time ever, my junior year, for a cadet world camp. Cadet world camp, and with Team USA. And I was like, this is where I'm going. Like, it feels like home. The weather's amazing pretty much all year round. Um, I knew people here from wrestling, so it was just very homey.
Mhm.
Yeah, which was crazy because I was always a homebody. Um,
And you were pretty far from home, being, you're from New
yeah,
Jersey, and then you went to school in Pennsylvania, where Wyoming
yeah,
Seminary is, and then you're going all the way out to ASU.
yeah,
I kind of want to backtrack a little bit.
yeah.
When
Sorry.
you said no, all good. When you said that your dad threw football pads on you, what was that experience like? And you had to grow up, and you said, it was your senior year was the first year for a women's wrestling team at Wyoming Sem, which is, for people outside of wrestling that don't know, that's one of the premier wrestling schools in high school.
Right,
But you had to compete against boys basically your entire life. What
right.
was that like? And or to you, was it really no different until you get to, the Fargo National Tournament and things like that, where you're competing against women even more? But what was it like for you, just not having as many opportunities for you to compete against other girls in the sports that you love playing, which were, you said football and then wrestling as well?
hmm Yeah, I mean, growing up, I loved it. Because I would always beat up on the boys, especially in wrestling. So that was always fun. But as I got older, I would say like seventh grade, that's when the guys would kind of start, um, I guess, hitting puberty in a way, and be a lot stronger than me.
Mhm.
So at that point, around middle school, it did get hard. And that's kind of when I stopped football because they were just a lot bigger than me. Um, but yeah, it was hard not having as many opportunities as women do now, but like that just goes to show like we started something, and if it weren't us, then like would it be like it is now? Um, but going back to that question, what was it like? I loved competing against the boys, but I do wish that there were a lot more women when I were younger. Um, Wrestling wise, it's so different, wrestling guys compared to women, because guys can be stronger, but women, it's like they're so much more flexible in the hips, and um so yeah, it's a lot different competing against men compared to women. Um so I mean, I was always used to wrestling the guys, up until my senior year of high school. Um, well, I would travel to like US like cadet world teams and that stuff as like, but that's like really it. I mean, I had one, two woman training partners in New Jersey, Skylar Grote and Shayna Murray, and we would always go to Buxton's. Um, but yeah, there's so many more women in the sport of wrestling now, which I love to see, and I wish I did have that opportunity. Um, but I love to see it grow as it is now.
Yeah, and you said it like it was really in its infancy. And when you got to Wyoming Sem, you said Adeline was one of your coaches, and Adeline is obviously transcendent when it comes to the sport. She's a champion. She's won medals at the highest level. What was it like having Adeline in your corner, who is, as I said, somebody that has kind of transcended the sport and has been one of those women that has brought even more attention to it through her winning more titles, and then, more recently becoming a mom and getting back into wrestling.
Yeah, I think it was amazing having her in our corner just because she knew the sport. She knew what kind of we would all be going through. Um, and having someone to look up to like her who's been through this process, it was just kind of comforting to know that we had someone like her in our corner.
Yeah. So now, as you said, there's a lot more opportunity for women, and you're part of that, right? You said you were one of the you were the on the first women's team at Wyoming Sem, and now you look and there are Division 1 wrestling teams. I mean, Iowa now has a team. If I remember correctly, I think weren't you even on the ASU roster at some point? I think you were on there. So like, there's just become so much more opportunity, and people are more open to it. And with Helen winning an Olympic title when she did, and like I said, Adeline winning world and Olympic titles and medals, it has considerably gotten a lot better, and there's been more opportunity. How does it feel for you to look back on those days at Wyoming Sem where things were very, very small on the high school ranks, and now seeing that in Pennsylvania, it's now a sanctioned sport for women, and then on the Division 1 level, there's a lot more girls that you've probably trained with that are at Iowa and doing a lot better on that college, on the college ranks as well as the high school ranks.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to know, to look back and see how I was a pioneer of the sport of women's wrestling. Um, Kind of like I said, I wish I had those opportunities, but um, sadly I didn't. But yeah, I definitely see the sport growing every single year. It's the fastest growing sport in the world right now, which is amazing. Um, and like if ASU got a women's team, soon or eventually, I would definitely consider coaching over here because I love it out here. I love the sport of women's wrestling. Um, and it's just such a good community to surround yourself with. Um, yeah, I feel like if people who don't wrestle just wouldn't understand like all the dedication and stuff you have to put in. Um, but yeah, it's amazing. I feel like wrestling shaped me into the person I am today. Um, and all that stuff. But yeah, going back to kind of growing the sport. So when I was in New Jersey, I was the only female on my high school wrestling team, whereas now they have a whole women's team
Mhm.
and they have a whole women's state tournament. So that just is really cool to me to see
You
it.
you also mentioned that Skylar Grote was one of your training partners, and what's it like for you to see her still competing and still continuing to move up weight classes and still doing what she's doing in the sport?
Yeah, so I still talk to Skylar pretty often now. So we're still good friends. And yeah, I love seeing how someone who I would train with still compete today. So it doesn't make me feel that old. But yeah, I love watching her compete. Just because I know just all the work you have to put in and sacrifices. So I just love watching her. I love watching her win and succeed in this sport. Yeah.
Was it tough for you when you decided that you were going to stop competing? I know for a lot of athletes, it's it's a really hard decision to make. I mean, even for myself, I when I stopped competing, I'm like, okay, now what do I do? Right? Was it tough for you to make that transition into essentially just kind of being a normal person? I mean, we always identify as athletes, but
Yeah.
like, you wake up, go to work, and do the things you have to do as an adult, and you're no longer getting on the mat and competing. Was that a tough transition for you?
It was a little tough. I think the one thing that helped me was I was working with Sunkist kids, so I would still travel with them to competitions and run all their social media stuff. So I think that kind of helped me being able to still be around it. And then after I stopped wrestling, I also coached at a high school over here. Um, so it was nice, and it was on the other side, it wasn't tough because I knew I wanted to start my own business and start making money because in the sport of wrestling, it's just kind of hard to make that money, which is going great. And I also work for a corporate company. Um, so yeah, I think my goal after college was okay, like now I'm gonna start making money and this is what I'm gonna do. And I can always help out with wrestling when I want to, when I need to, and still help grow the sport.
Yeah. You said, you know, you wanted to create your own company and start to make money. You've developed a really good following on social media and you've been doing a lot of marketing and a lot of influencing and stuff like that. Was that part of the goals? And is that something you went to school for and figured you could kind of change your trajectory from being an athlete into, you know, being a marketer?
Yeah, so I went to college for family and human development, and I was thinking of working in like a children's hospital as
Mhm.
a like a social worker. Um, but that didn't go as planned, because then I said once I graduated, I kind of wanted to have my own business in social media management, which is going great. I have a lot of clients and also assistants that help me out, so it's going really well. Um, I don't put in as much work on my social media as I do to my clients, even though I should. And I always say, okay, I'm gonna start doing more stuff for my social media. But I look at my social media kind of just like for fun in a way. I do get brand deals. I do work with a lot of companies. But um, seeing how far and like how much money these real influencers can make, it's like I would love to be there, but I would have to put in the work first on my end.
Yeah. You'd have to kind of transition from working more on your clients to working on yourself if
Right.
that was it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're around the time now and NCAA wrestling championships are coming up. So I want to pick your brain a little bit about that, but the it was also approved this year that the women are going to have their own NCAA wrestling championship. In the first year, it's going to be all three divisions, and then they'll start to separate. When you heard that that was going to happen, what was the response? Did you get? I'm sure you were probably part of, you know, a lot of text message groups, as you know, a lot of us are. What was the response? What was the celebration like? What were the conversations like when the announcement came out that there was going to be a Division 1 or at least a national championship for women's wrestling?
Yeah, a lot of people were sending me those posts, especially from Instagram. And I think a lot of just my friends, my family, coaches, everyone who is kind of in that community, is just so excited about that because it just goes to show again how much this sport is growing and how much success women's wrestling will be in the future. Um, it's gonna be just as like the guys, like NCAA's is so electric
Mhm.
and probably one of the best tournaments out there in the US. Um, and yeah, we're not far from that, and I think within a couple years, I think women like uh women's championships will be something similar to that.
Yeah.
I'll
So
definitely be going.
yeah. As you look back at your career, what are some of those times where it was hard and you probably wanted to quit, or some of those times where you kind of go back to it, right? Because wrestlers and athletes in general, but wrestlers in particular, you have a kind of a different mindset of things. Your mind kind of works a little bit slower when it comes to chaos because you've been in, you know, such hectic conditions with cutting weight and training and being up against some of the best people in the world. When you look back and you're like, man, those are some of the things that I did, there's really not much that can really phase me at this point. Is there any maybe tournaments or training days where you're just like, that's the kind of stuff that I did back then? There's really not much that can really phase me now.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I think. Like I just tell myself like though like I put myself through so much back then, like there's nothing that I can't really do now. The one time I really remember that was so hard was actually in eighth grade. So eighth grade is when I started cutting weight. Um, and I cut I think 18 pounds for the season. And I did it pretty smart. I did it the right way. Um, but then after weigh-ins and stuff, I'd kind of eat whatever I want. Go out to dinner, go get some ice cream, kind of, yeah. So then I had like a match, a day off, then another match. So my first match I lost, and it was so no, I think that match like I just like kind of shit the bed. Um, it was not a good day for me. And then after that match, I was like, you know what, like fuck this. I'm not wrestling. Like I'm not doing this. And then I just started pounding food, pounding water, and everything. I'm like, I'm not wrestling the next day. And then I go home, kind of think about it, and I'm like, no, like I have to wrestle. Like I'm doing this. So the next morning I wake up and I'm not 9 pounds over on the day I have weigh-ins. So, you know me, I'm running on the treadmill, sauna suit, this, that, and dying. I'm dying. So, but I made it. I made weight. So just that's a day I'll always remember and kind of look back on and be like, okay, if I can do that, like I can kind of pretty much do anything. And there's nothing I'm really scared of doing. I feel like to grow, you got to put yourself in uncomfortable positions in life. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody probably has a dreadful weigh-in story that kind of
yeah,
pushes them forward. And when they had to sacrifice, and now you're like, I'm never going to sacrifice. If I want to eat something, I'm eating it. There's
right?
no way
Yeah.
I'm letting myself get away with not eating it. Um,
Mhm.
so like I said, I
Yeah,
want to,
I think that's the one piece of advice I would probably give to a future wrestler. Like,
yeah.
don't cut too much weight. Um, if anything, like 5, 10 pounds max. Kind of wrestle where you at, and you'll kind of just feel better when out there, and it's more enjoyable when you don't have to cut weight.
Yeah, and luckily now there's a lot more kind of restrictions and parameters on, people cutting weight in the sport, and hydration testing, and, descent plans and stuff like that. So they monitor it a little bit more now, but yeah, it's still probably pretty tough to, make sure that people are doing things as safe as possible. But I think, in the sport, we've definitely gotten a lot smarter, and not allowed wrestlers, male or female, to cut too much weight. So it's a little bit different. And right now we're at the pinnacle of the season right now. NCAA wrestling championships are coming up. And you have obviously gotten to be around NCAA champion Richie Figueroa, plenty being in the room at ASU. What's it like around this time being in a Division I wrestling room when the NCAA championships are coming up and everyone is kind of on edge, and what's it like being in that wrestling room with, Coach Pritz and those guys and Zeke in that room when it's this time of the year?
Yeah, I think this time of the year they're more one-on-one focused practices. Because like, a lot of people didn't make it to NCAAs.
Hmm.
So a lot of times they just won't come to practice anymore. But if they're needed as a partner, obviously they'll come in. But yeah, I know they have this like big TV up there, and it's like 3 more days, and like
Yeah.
so yeah, it's really cool. And having especially someone like Lee Pritz. I love Pritz. He's one of the best coaches out here. He literally does anything for his wrestlers. Um, so having someone like him going into NCAAs is one of the best things these wrestlers probably could have. Um, and yeah, I'm really close with Richie. His sister's actually here visiting right now. Um, and she coaches at King, so she'd probably be a good one to interview too.
Yeah, I used to watch her beat up on people a lot when she
Yeah.
was wrestling too. So
She always
uh,
said she might get back into it, but she's not sure.
pretty sure there's a lot of people that'd be happy to see her back on the mat, myself included. I was a big fan of watching her wrestle.
Yeah.
Um, So we'll see if Richie can do it again. I think last year people were kind of surprised that he won. Do you have any surprise picks for this year's NCAA championship? Anyone that might not be, the top seed or the favorite. Obviously, Richie isn't the favorite again this year after losing at Big 12s, but anyone in any of the brackets that you're like, I think this person can surprise some people.
Mm. So I haven't watched as much wrestling as I did when I were in college. But yeah, I think Richie's the type of person when he's dialed in, and he does it right the week out. He's nobody can stop him. So I think Richie's gonna do it again for sure. Do you have anyone?
My surprise guy, and it's at 125, and it's a California guy that and we're doing our intermat podcast later on tonight.
Yeah.
But the guy that I was really impressed with at Big 12s, and I was impressed with him when he was in high school, was Maximo Renneria. Really liked how he wrestled.
From
Uh,
where?
he's from Oregon State, and
Mm.
really, I was always impressed with him. I think he's really good. And not to say that he would be a guy that would win it, but I
Yeah.
think that he definitely should out wrestle his seed. He's one of those guys that kind of have on my mind that will do very, very well in the bracket and can surprise some people. And he's
Yeah.
in that bottom half. I don't think he's in the same side as Richie. So him and Richie, they've wrestled a ton. I think he beat Richie maybe one time before, but they've definitely wrestled a ton. I watched them wrestle a lot in high school.
Yeah.
I was out in California a lot, so I had a chance to get pretty close with those guys out in California, whether it be Clovis or Buchanan or anything like that. I covered that match a ton, as well as the Doc B. So a lot of really good friends that love California wrestling. I'm a Pennsylvania guy. I grew up in PA. I'm from Lehigh Valley, so a little bit different for me when it comes to wrestling. So, but no, I think we've been looking at the brackets all day, and they came out last night. But my favorite weight class is 184 and 285. I really think that we're in a really good year of heavyweights
Yeah.
where those guys battle every single year and every single day. And like they're some of those heavyweights, and I've obviously known Colton Schultz since he was really young Colorado kid as well, winning Doc B. Um, and I know his dad very well. His dad's an awesome guy. But I think we're in like an age of heavyweights where we're kind of spoiled. And it's
Yeah.
not these guys that just want to like push people around. Like they're actually like going at it now. So I can't wait to see how heavyweight shakes out.
Who do you got winning heavyweights?
I mean, I think it's Gable. It's really tough to bet against him. But the match, I want to see Gable wrestle Hendrickson because both those guys have wrestled really well all year. And potential to get it, but it's going to take Hendrickson beating Kirkfleet in order for that to happen. So we'll certainly see. And Jacory's got a tough one probably in the second round with Meyer Shapiro being on the same in his same half of the
Is
bracket.
that who he would have second round?
Second round, yeah, he's the 18 and Myers the 2. So we'll certainly see kind of how it's gonna shake out with those guys. Both of them injured for most of the year and just kind of I mean, Jacory at this point is kind of put together with duct tape with all the injuries that he's had to go through. So we'll see what happens with that match 18 and 2. A lot of people are kind of going a little crazy over it. I don't have too much of an opinion of it. You got to wrestle everyone anyway, but
Oh,
um, so we'll see.
yeah, I'm excited. I'm going again this year. So I can't wait. It's gonna be, like I said, electric.
Yeah. Well, Marley, I appreciate this conversation. Honestly, it's been awesome to get to know you. I think maybe the first time that I'd ever even spoken to you, I'd taken a trip to ASU and you guys were practicing. But then we had that conversation. I think at um, what was it, Final X in
Yeah.
Jersey in the tunnel, I think that one time. So, but it's been great to, follow you and see what you're doing at work. I think it's awesome that, you've been able to take everything that you've kind of learned on the mat and everything you've learned and, have your own business. So I think it's really, really cool. Before we go, let everybody know kind of what your business is and where they can find you and kind of, plug everything that you got.
Yeah, so I run a business called Next Wave Media LLC. It's social media management. So for my clients, I can get content for them wherever they want, whenever they want, edit it all up for them, and then kind of manage their social pages, whether that be YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, kind of whatever they want. And I'll kind of schedule and manage their social media, saving them time, energy, because it's a lot harder and takes up a lot more time than people actually think. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram. It's called Next Wave Media LLC on Instagram, or I have a website, nextwavemediallc.com. So yeah, or you can direct message me on my own page, Marlee Smith, to talk more about it.
Awesome. And I'll make sure that all your socials and stuff are in the comments so anybody can reach out and get straight to you, put the websites and everything else down there too. But Marlee, I think it's awesome, everything that you're doing. It's always great to see wrestlers succeed on and off the mat, and you're definitely one of those people that are doing it. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And I love seeing what you're doing as well.